In this unit, Study, we will talk about why and how to test your nudges. This will help you ensure that what you predict to happen will actually happen when you start implementing the nudge in the whole organization. Why do we need to test? Nudging is very context dependent. This can sometimes make it difficult to know for sure whether something will work in a given situation or not. So just because a nudge has been proven successful in one particular context doesn't mean it will work in your unique conditions. You do not want to waste money or time on something that doesn't work, especially if there might be a better nudge out there. You also don't want to implement something widely that might have unintended side effects and might actually hurt your cause. You might think that you are smart enough to correctly anticipate how a nudge will work and how it will change behavior. Unfortunately, not even the most experienced behavioral scientists in the world can say for sure which interventions will work and how effective they will be without testing. So don't feel bad if you can't either. There is an interesting example from the Behavioral Insights team which shows how difficult it is even for experts to get it right. The BIT tested different versions of a nudge to increase registration for organ donations. In this slide, you can see all the options that they tested. Many of them nudges building on the cognitive biases we touched upon in this course, such as social norms and loss aversion. Based on their experience, one of the alternatives they believed would have the best effect was number 3, which had a social proof message and a photo. But when the results came, it turned out to actually be the worst performing option, worse than the control group. So in this case, even a group of expert behavioral scientists had the wrong intuition, and it's a good thing that they tested. What prevents us from getting it right every time? First, we as choice architects are also affected by biases, just like the individuals we are trying to nudge. For example, we are affected by overconfidence. We believe that the nudge we design is best and will therefore lead to the desired outcome 100% of the time. How could it not be? We designed it. Especially if we have invested a lot of time in planning the nudge, we want to see that it works and we will interpret the evidence in our favor. This has to do with the endowment effect that we talked about before and another bias that we haven't mentioned, which is called confirmation bias. Many top companies such as Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon religiously test new iterations of products and features. When tech companies test new features in a controlled way, they call it A/B testing. And it has become a way to get closer to what the users want and achieve a competitive edge. An important principle for understanding why we need to test is the difference between correlation and causation. Our brain is wired to see cause and effect all around us. It is how we learn as children. If my daughter says hungry, I give her food. If I push a button, the light will turn on. However, this tendency to see cause and effect everywhere can sometimes lead us astray and make us see things that aren't really there. Have a look at the following example. It shows the relationship between ice cream sales and drownings. And we can clearly see that the more ice cream being sold, the more people drown. This is quite disturbing and probably means that we should ban ice cream, right? Well, clearly there is something else going on. As you might have figured out, it is the warm weather that is most likely increasing both the consumption of ice cream and the amount of people who go swimming and drown. Our tendency to see cause and effect where it doesn't exist can be problematic when we want to know whether our nudge is responsible for behavior change. If we implement the nudge and then see a change in behavior, we will assume that the nudge caused the change in behavior. But we can be wrong. It can be that the behavior would have changed anyway for other reasons that have nothing to do with the nudge. There are several other good reasons for why we want to test. It is one thing to test whether something works or not, and that is important. But we might also want to know whether it works well and has a large enough effect to make it worth the effort. Testing can help us figure out effect size to determine whether to implement the nudge on a larger scale. It can help us figure out any unintended consequences or negative feedback. And it can help us understand the cost of implementing so that we can do a cost-benefit analysis of the intervention. Testing doesn't have to be expensive or difficult. Most of the time, you don't need too much scientific or statistical expertise. However, it is best if you can follow certain procedures, which we will explain in the next video. Even if the test returns no significant results for positive change, this can still give you more insight into the problem, so you can come up with a better and more targeted nudge. Finally, having actual numbers from a test can help you get buy-in, convince other people in your organizations, perhaps management, to implement the nudge and invest the resources that you need. To summarize, studying takes you from having a good idea to having evidence that your idea actually works. Want to make sure that you have fully grasped the difference between correlation and causation? Take the quiz to find out.